Hey there, guys. My name is Siobhan Fallon. Welcome back to Custer's 7th Cavalry. Today, I thought we could talk about the life of Second Lieutenant William Van Wyck Reily, whose body was found right next to Custer's after the Battle of the Little Bighorn. But almost more interesting than that is how a kid who dropped out of the Naval Academy, who could hardly even ride a horse, ended up in the 7th Cavalry to begin with. And part of that was due to his beautiful and very ambitious mother, Ellen. Let's learn more. Thanks again.
William Van Wyck Reily's life was marked with tragedy. You could even say his family's early tragedy paved the way for Reily's own. Reily was born on December 12, 1853. His father missed the birth. Lieutenant William Reily, a Naval Academy graduate, was part of the U.S. Navy's North Pacific expedition to China. Only 24 years old at the time, he was second in command of the USS Porpoise. When he went to sea, he left his pregnant 19-year-old wife, Ellen Roche Reily, in Washington, D.C. Baby William was named for his father and his father's friend and Naval Academy graduate, William Van Wyck. Lieutenant Reily never made it back home, nor did he meet his only son. The USS Porpoise went down during a typhoon in the Straits of Formosa. Every single person on board was lost, including William's friend, William Van Wyck. The young widow, with the help of her brother, also a naval officer, tutored young Willie and was able to get him into Georgetown College, the Catholic preparatory school in Washington, D.C. If you saw my French bio, you remember that Captain French also attended Georgetown College as a youth, though nearly a decade before Reily. Meanwhile, Ellen had remarried a well-to-do lawyer and bore him 4 children. After graduating from Georgetown, Reily went abroad for 2 years, attending school in Dresden. But as soon as he returned, he learned his mother wanted him to attend the Naval Academy like his father, and she was determined to make it happen. Ellen wrote a letter to President Grant himself saying, "I do not know that I have any right to ask this opportunity for my son on the ground that his father's life was sacrificed in the public service. But as the boy advances into manhood, I cannot help feeling that there is something in the tragedy which appeals strongly on behalf of the only son of the lost." Well, Ellen's persuasion got him through the door, but young Reily failed to pass the first round of entrance examinations. He was luckier a few months later and became a Navy midshipman in September 1870. But his time there was anything but smooth sailing. He failed and had to repeat his coursework for 2 years in a row. 1872 proved a difficult one for the family. In the spring of 1872, Reily's half-brother died, and just a few weeks later, Ellen's second husband died of a stroke. That October, Reily resigned from the Naval Academy. Soon after, Reily left his grief-stricken mother and half-siblings and signed on with the surveying expedition to Central America. The party consisted of a group of naval personnel as well as civilians, so Reily must have fit right in. But the 7-month journey and tour was difficult as they had to make their way through the jungles of Nicaragua, often using machetes, and Reily contracted a fever. His health issues will come up later and be yet another factor that led him to joining the 7th Cavalry. Reily returned in July 1873. He soon got a job as an assistant engineer at the Washington Navy Yard. He impressed his peers and was given a position of authority, superintending the dismantling of Civil War ships for scrap iron. But this job did not impress his mother. So Ellen once again wrote to President Grant, this time asking him to give her son a commission in a U.S. Army cavalry regiment. And once more Grant granted the widow's wish, if Reily could pass the written examination. And he did, but just barely. The highest score was a 44. Reily received a 28. But written on his test was this note: "The President directs special attention. Son of Navy officer, lost with U.S. brig Porpoise." There were other applicants who took the test that day. The one who scored the highest was the son of Major General Thomas Leonidas Crittenden. Second Lieutenant John Jordan Crittenden would also find himself at the Little Bighorn battlefield with Custer. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Reily received a commission as a second lieutenant to the 10th Cavalry. The 10th Cavalry was one of the 2 Buffalo Soldier cavalry regiments. Reily reported for duty at St. Louis Jefferson Barracks on November 22, 1875. But Ellen was not happy and wanted him reassigned to a more prestigious cavalry unit. As luck or bad luck would have it, Colonel Sam Sturgis, commander of the 7th Cavalry, was on detached duty at Jefferson Barracks around this time. This may have helped Ellen's cause. Sadly, again she got her wish in determining her son's career. She was able to wrangle a, quote, doctor's request in regards to Reily's ill health, and he was transferred to Custer's 7th Cavalry, which was considered a crack cavalry at the time. Ellen was doing everything she could to help her son, and she must have been so proud, thinking she had put him on a path to success. She did help him. She did set him up on a path to glory, but certainly not the glory any mother could ever hope for. Second Lieutenant Reily left St. Louis for the Dakota Territories on March 3, 1876. He accompanied 11 musicians also on their way to join the 7th Cavalry. In mid-April, after some sub-zero stops at Fort Totten and Fort Seward, Second Lieutenant Reily and other officers and companies of the 7th were slowly setting up camp around Fort Abraham Lincoln and getting ready to mobilize for the summer campaign. Reily was transferred to Company F, Captain George Yates's bandbox troop. Captain Yates was the officer married to Annie Yates. Second Lieutenant Reily, pictured here in his uniform as an officer of the 10th Cavalry, was every bit as dashing as he looks. One reporter described him as remarkably handsome, being tall, finely formed, and having clear-cut, regular features, gray eyes, and brown hair. His usual expression was tinged with melancholy. And Catherine Gibson, wife of H Company's First Lieutenant Frank Gibson, said he was a good-looking rogue. On May 15th, just 2 days before the 7th Cavalry departed Fort Abraham Lincoln for the deadly summer campaign, 22-year-old Reily wrote a letter home. Reily's letter was to his, quote, dear Ma, and he told her how the wives of the officers were very much affected by the coming expedition, but he himself was not worried. He also mentioned a reporter would be going with them and advised his mother to take the papers if you wish to receive glowing descriptions of our adventures. In other letters from the field, he confided, quote, I was very much afraid that I would have trouble learning how to ride, but I have made out very well, and I have ridden some of the most vicious animals in the command, and with a little practical and theoretical knowledge, I have gotten along as well as any. In one letter, he makes a joke about there being, quote, no signs of Indians yet. His last letter home was just 4 days before the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Reily had been on the 10-day scout with Reno, and he wrote, our horses are almost played out. We lost 2 en route. He described the landscape as, quote, cactus and sagebrush are the only things for one's eyes to rest upon and make the country so bad it can only be imagined and not described. He also revealed that Custer said they would have a fight with the Indians within 4 days, which is exactly what happened. Lest his mother feel too sorry for him, Reily said, quote, I assure you that I am satisfied and am not complaining. Probably not very consoling to his mom, he also wrote, if I live through this campaign, end quote, he hoped to meet her in Philadelphia at the Centennial Fair. He finished the letter with this, I am very anxious to get off on the expedition. Love to you all. Pray for your ever devoted son, Willie. Second Lieutenant William Van Wyck Reily never made it to that Centennial Fair in Philadelphia. He died on June 25th, 1876, fighting alongside Captain George Yates's F Company. There are some differing accounts of where exactly his body was found. Lieutenant Charles DeRudio says Reily's body was riddled with arrows and very close to the body of George Custer, but Lieutenant Winfield Edgerly said both Reily and Captain Yates, with a great many enlisted men, were found at the base of the knoll. His mother, Ellen, was, of course, devastated. As a mother myself, I can't imagine the guilt she had to bear for the rest of her life. Like Reily's father, lost at sea with every shipmate, not one from Custer's immediate command made it out of that fight alive to tell Ellen what exactly had happened to her beloved boy. Ellen wrote to many of the 7th Cavalry widows. To Annie Yates, the wife of Captain Yates, she wrote, "My darling boy wrote to me how fond he was of his captain." She also told Annie she had visited Jerusha Sturgis, wife to Colonel Sam Sturgis, whom we mentioned earlier. Colonel and Mrs. Sturgis had lost 2nd Lieutenant Jack Sturgis at the Little Bighorn. Ellen wrote, "Mrs. Sturgis and my loss are so nearly alike, our boys being the same age." Ellen then asked Annie to disclose anything you may have heard of the fearful slaughter, and can you tell me anything of the remains being brought in? Ellen had learned that her son's ring, actually a family heirloom ring, was not on his finger when his friends found his body. Reily's father was a descendant of the Key family, as in Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. Ellen began writing letters to Indian agents and learned something interesting, which inspired her to write this letter to John Quincy Smith, the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, on April 3, 1877. "My dear sir, may I beg your interest in trying to recover the ring worn by my son, Lieutenant William V. W. Reily, 7th Cavalry, sacrificed with Custer, June 25, 1876. For this purpose I enclose facsimiles of same, begging you to have letters written to each and all of the Indian agents, saying any reward paid to recover said ring will be gladly refunded by me. Mr. Mitchell, agent at Fort Peck, wrote me a very kind letter and told me he had been informed by a friendly Unc Papa that a hostile Unc Papa showed him a ring last fall, corresponding in description to the ring of my son. From that fact I have hope. You can readily understand how anxious I am to get it, being on his finger when he was killed. I am a widow, and my poor boy was my idol, being in every way, all a most exacting mother could desire. His father was Lieutenant William Reily, U.S. Navy, lost on the U.S. Porpoise, with all aboard, not one returning to tell a word of those gone. By exerting yourself on my behalf, you will have the everlasting gratitude of a most afflicted mother." Incredibly, just 11 days before she wrote this letter, Lieutenant William Philo Clark of the 2nd Cavalry wrote this letter to the Army and Navy Journal. "I have in my possession a ring obtained from an Indian who recently came from the north, that I presume belonged to some officer killed in the fight on the Little Bighorn last summer. The ring is plain gold, sealed jasper stone, head and neck of a griffin rampant, with a key. It would afford me pleasure to restore this to any intimate friend or kin of the deceased owner." Within days, the ring was returned to Ellen. In July of 1877, the bones of the officers were exhumed from the Little Bighorn battlefield by Captain Michael Sheridan. On this expedition were many scouts who had been at the Little Bighorn fight, including the Crow Scouts, Curly, White Man Runsim, and Half Yellow Face. Reily's body was exhumed, as well as the bodies of other officers who had been ID'd. All but Crittenden, whose family requested he be permanently buried where he fell, were put in coffins and sent east. Reily was sent to Washington, D.C. His body arrived on August 3rd, and that same day he was buried with full military honors in Mount Olivet Cemetery. Ellen married a third time in 1883 to Rear Admiral John C. Febinger. One newspaper called her a very handsome woman, and though 50 years of age, still seemed very youthful. Her life was also tragically cut short. On April 14, 1889, Ellen and her son Paul were in Washington, D.C., riding home in a carriage. Suddenly, one of the axle poles snapped. The horses panicked. The driver jumped out. Paul also jumped out to grab the reins, but the horses kicked free and galloped up F Street. People on the street tried to stop the horses. Women screamed. Those who saw Ellen inside the carriage said she remained calm the entire time. The horses got as far as 14th Street when the carriage hit the trolley tracks and overturned, crushing her. A doctor was on the scene, and with 2 other men, they carried her to her home on H Street. She was given last rites and died at dawn the next morning without ever becoming conscious. On April 18, 1889, Ellen Roche Reily Johnson Febinger was laid to rest next to her beloved son, Second Lieutenant William Van Wyck Reily.
Thank you for joining me, guys. As always, please subscribe, click that notification bell, like, leave a comment, tell me what you want me to research next. Check the description box. I'm going to fill it up with where I got a lot of the information that I used today, especially from a Brian Pohanka article, and Dr. Viola has some really great information out there on Reily. Thank you. Thanks especially to Nathan Simons and to Dale Cosman for suggestions. And Dale just found some really great images I used in this video today. Okay, guys, I hope I see you again soon. Come on back. Thank you. Bye.